Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiatoria, but this is just a silly little video based on some observations that have been made on a video that I did with Lloyd, which we filmed at Fight Camp and I put up recently. And it's been noted, lots of people have said, my God, Lloyd is huge. And I just wanted to point out that there are a few things that can really change how you perceive how big we are on a camera. And so hopefully now you're thinking, doesn't Matt look a bit small? Well, in a minute, I'm going to show you how much bigger I can look. Let's have a look at that and see what it looks like. And here I am, this is Big Matt, and there are really only two things that have changed, okay? Number one, I put the camera down a little bit lower, and it's very interesting that you guys watching this obviously have no sense of perspective and size and other people around us to compare our size in relation to other human beings. I'm 6'1", Lloyd I think is about 6'4", 6'5", so Lloyd's really, really tall. I'm a bit taller than average. And you know, there was that picture that was done by one of our viewers a while ago that showed Lloyd, Scalagrim and myself next to each other, and in that Scalagrim is huge and Lloyd is tiny little hobbit and I'm in the middle. Well, actually I am in the middle, but it should be the other way around. I think Scal's probably shorter and Lloyd's definitely taller than me, as you've seen. But there's one other thing that's changed. So first of all, you've got nothing to compare to, but there are two things I've changed, and just to be interesting to see if you agree that I do now appear bigger than before. And those two things are, number one, I put the camera down lower and I've moved it slightly, and I've moved slightly closer to the camera, so I'm now filling the frame and I'm now looking slightly downwards at the camera, so it feels probably like I'm looking slightly downwards at you rather than upwards. I think Lloyd tends to put his camera fairly high up, which of course disguises the fact that he is really tall. And the other thing I've changed is my voice slightly. I wonder how many people picked up on that. So I'm now talking in my normal voice, and previously I raised my voice slightly. Now, there are various things that can change how you sound. Obviously there's a conscious change. I can talk in a higher voice like this and I'm still sound like Matt, but I'm sounding now slightly probably more diminutive because I'm talking in a higher pitch. But if I talk in a lower voice like this, then I probably sound far more impressive and manly, and in fact I can get lower and lower and lower. So it's an interesting kind of experiment, and this is probably my normal pitch of speaking. But one thing that does change, not consciously, how you sound is whether you're out of breath. And I know because I've watched videos of me where I've been teaching or I've been demonstrating things, or like when we did that video of trying to break a rapier with long swords. And I've noticed when I'm out of breath, my voice goes up a bit because your vocal cords contract and tighten. And I think it's very interesting how you, the viewer, get a hugely different impression of our size or assertiveness or kind of being slightly shy or slightly sort of, you know, a bit nervous based on how we act or how our voice is or this kind of thing. So it's an interesting thing. One final thing I'll say is something I've noticed is I have over the years met various people off television and film, and almost universally, they're smaller than you expect, or at least smaller than I expect. I obviously can't talk for you, but whenever I've walked past anyone on the street or met, you know, actually met and talked to anyone who is from the television or from the cinema screen, they always pretty much seem to be, well, not always, like 95% of the time, are smaller than I expected. There have been a couple of people who were bigger than I expected. And I've also noticed one other thing as well. People who are successful on television and film often have big heads. Now, I don't mean they've got huge egos, although that probably helps in being a YouTuber. It probably helps if you're quite full of yourself. But if you want to be a presenter, public speaker, probably if you want to do well at work, or indeed, of course, if you want to be an actor or you know, successful on television or cinema or whatever, being confident, or at least being able to pretend that you're confident, very important difference there, is important. But big heads, actually anatomically, I have noticed so many people I have met off TV and film have large craniums. I unfortunately have a relatively small cranium, so I'll undoubtedly never be of any use on television, maybe on radio, maybe that, but absolutely having a large head, if you're going into politics or television or probably pop music, probably helps, I would say. And I think the reason for that is what I've mentioned before, is having a large head makes you look a bit more like a character, I suppose, like almost like an action figure or a cartoon character, or, you know, this type of thing. having a large head seems to help. And I've met a number of, during my working years, I've met a number of politicians and celebrities, and so many of them, like all of the ones I can think of off the top of my head, pun there, have large craniums, have large heads. Bill Clinton, I won't say I've met Bill Clinton, but I've certainly stood next to Bill Clinton. He has a freaking huge head, a really, like, notably large cranium, and he's not a big man. He's actually, I don't think he's as tall as me. I think he's maybe about 6 foot. I don't know. He didn't seem as tall as me. So he's not big. He's not imposing physically, but he has a really massive head. And someone else, Bob Geldof. Bob Geldof has got a pretty massive head, I have to say. I've stood near Bill Gates. He actually has quite a small head, but of course he's made himself not through being a celebrity, but through through his brain and what he does and his business acumen. Bono, I've stood next to Bono as well. He has a massive head and a tiny body. So there you go. If you're one of those people watching this who doesn't know what to do with their future, with their career and all this kind of stuff, and you have a small body and a large head, become a celebrity. And that's it. And see you next time for my next video that might be about swords next time. Okay, cheers folks. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We have extra videos on Patreon and you can follow us on Facebook.